So welcome to ACCE Convention. We're thrilled to be here in New Orleans. This is a great opportunity for you to mix and mingle with other chamber leaders from across the country and learn from one another. I'm also thrilled that we're celebrating America's 250th birthday. One of my favorite facts is that the first chamber in the United States was here 8 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We've been here longer than this has been a country. And we've been through all the ups and downs that the US has seen, and we're still here. In fact, we're more needed and trusted than ever. Now we get the chance to look at the next 250 years and figure out how do we make sure we have even more impact than we do now. Now, if you're not familiar with our Horizon Initiative, this is a research report we put out last year. And these are the major influences that are shaping the future of our profession. So we've just released our latest influence. It's resilience in the age of disruption. And resilience is a really under-tapped resource. We're going to talk a little bit about resilience as individuals, resilience as chambers of commerce, but also resilience for our communities. Now, something important to note is that resilience really has to be cultivated in conjunction with innovation. Innovation is essential right now. We're facing an unparalleled pace of change. Our member value propositions are being questioned daily. We have increased competition. Innovation is one of those places where it can address all of those challenges. So putting these two things together, resilience and innovation, are going to really help our organizations and our communities moving forward. Now, if you've ever seen me speak, you know that I love data, and I love the Edelman Trust Barometer. This is a global public opinion poll that looks at trust in major institutions. Those institutions are business, media, government, and NGOs or nonprofits. What's great about these results is for the last 6 years, business continues to be the most trusted of all of those institutions. In fact, since last year, trust in business has gone up by 2 points. But in this year's Trust Barometer, they asked a new question. They asked, what's your trust in your own employer? 78% of people said that they highly trust their employer, which is a great data point to share with our members. They have to recall the fact that they are this incredibly trusted source within their communities. This research report also shows that trust is local. And I can't think of many institutions that are more local than the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, when you look at their information, trust in institutions like international government leaders and major media outlets has declined, but trust in individuals, so my coworkers, my family, my friends, has gone up. This means we have to rethink influence. If we're trying to get someone to come to our side of an issue, these are the individuals that we need to reach so that they understand our message and they're influencing the people that we want to see on our side of the issue. But we also know that chambers are incredibly trusted. This is from the Harris poll that we conducted. It's a nationwide poll, and 81% of US adults believe that chambers are a trusted resource and partner for business. But we also know that trust isn't guaranteed. It has to be earned. And again, this idea of resilience and innovation can really help support building that trust. So when we talk about resilience, it doesn't just mean white-knuckling it through a challenge. Resilience is, yes, you have to bounce back, but you also have to adapt forward. How can you make sure that you're coming out the other side of a challenge even stronger than when you went in? So first, we're going to talk about cultivating individual resilience. You can't expect to have a resilient team if you don't have resilient individuals who are helping to support your chamber's work. In fact, resilience is one of the most underrated factors that contributes to both mental health and leadership. So let's take a look at the scenario we're in right now. This is a Gallup poll. 69% of current workers say they're either not engaged or actively disengaged in their workplace. This is what we're dealing with. And at ACCE, we said, let's take a deeper dive into the chamber workforce. So we conducted a poll last month and asked chamber staff about their own situation right now at work. Only half of chamber professionals said that their mental health is described as good or excellent. About 1/3 said that their mental health has declined since last year, and 56% of chamber staff say that they're burnt out at work. So this is a real challenge. We wanted to get at, well, what's going to help with this situation? So we asked, what are the top benefits that you want to see in your chamber? They all had to do with time off. It was flexible or remote work hours, ample paid time off, and mental health days. What's fascinating is that the top choices that chamber professionals chose are also some of the top factors that can contribute to stronger individual resilience. And these are easy things that we can add to our existing benefits. But we also know that supporting your staff's financial future is another way to help build resilience. ACCE, we offer insurance and retirement benefits, so if you haven't talked to us about that, please connect with our team. We'd be happy to share more information with you. But also from our poll last month, we realized that purpose anchors people. The chamber professionals whose #1 goal is supporting their community and making an impact locally, those were the staff who were more likely to be committed to staying in their role. So what this tells us is, one, we should be hiring for this factor, but also we need to constantly remind ourselves and our staff about our purpose and our why. This really helps anchor us, it builds that resilience, but it also helps with staff retention. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about resilient leadership, but I want to make something really clear. We lead from every seat within the chamber. This is not just the CEO's job. So when I talk about resilient leadership, this is for everyone. So I've done a lot of research about what does it take to be a resilient leader. Listen to the academics, the thought leaders, and there were 7 attributes of individuals who are really successful at leading through adversity. So I wanted to walk through those with you. The first is emotional intelligence. How do you handle your own emotions, but also how do you handle the emotions of others? There's a great book out there, it's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Fantastic, it's a great resource. I've actually had my chamber CEO team go through an emotional intelligence training. This is a great place to start. The second is an always learning, curious mindset. So this is about personal and professional development. Now you're here at the ACCE convention, so you understand that importance, but you want to make sure you're always cultivating that within yourself and your team members. Also having a steady vision through uncertainty. When things are getting difficult, are you getting pulled into side conversations, or are you remaining committed to your core mission and your greatest value proposition? Next is an adaptable and solutions-focused ambition. Do you recognize that there's more than one path to get to a goal? And are you focusing on the solutions, or are you spending too much time pointing fingers at who's the problem and why there's a challenge in front of you? Focusing on what's controllable. This comes up frequently. There are a lot of factors that are out there that are going to impact our work that we have no control over. If we can spend our time focusing on what we can control, that really helps. You want to be collaborative, both within your organization, but also externally as well. And this last one is really important. It's an exceptional energy and time management system. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you focusing on your core value proposition, or are you spending too much time just checking off things on your to-do list? Now at ACCE, we want to provide resources to support you through your resilient leadership journey. This is our Leading Through Uncertainty playbook. It's a great resource that has lots of tips and tools talking about when do you weigh in on an issue, when do you take a pass. This is free to ACCE members. It's a fantastic resource. I highly recommend checking it out. We also have a toolkit for new chamber CEOs. We know that there's a steep learning curve when you get into the position. We have lots of great information about the leadership tools and techniques that are going to be most effective for you. And of course, we have the CCE. This is the highest certification that you can earn in our profession. It's the Certified Chamber Executive. The body of knowledge that goes into this program, it's constantly changing to make sure that we're focused on the most essential modern leadership tactics. Now, I want to talk a little bit about organizations and their resilience. How do you make sure that your chamber doesn't just survive a difficult circumstance, but comes out the other side stronger? So a few months back, I penned an article for Chamber Executive magazine that got a lot of attention. because the headline was talking about a trend that I've seen that's really disturbing. And it's that a lot of chamber CEOs are getting fired from their position. Sometimes tenure and even performance is not shielding CEOs from this happening. And there are a lot of factors that weigh in on this. We've got boards that are operating under a lot more pressure. Communities are asking for a faster return on their investment. They want to see solutions come to fruition in a quicker manner. Polarization is leading us away from solutions. But one of the biggest factors is the relationship between the CEO and the board. We want to make sure there are clear roles and responsibilities for board and CEO. We want to make sure there's training in place. We have to constantly be curating trust and transparency between the two sides. And so at ACCE, we want to make sure you have the resources to make that happen and to make sure that your governance is as strong and effective as possible. So in this QR code, there's a host of resources that are free for ACCE members. And then we also have some premium content that you can look at for a fee as well. And we're going to continue to develop resources in this area. We want to make sure you are as strong as possible. Now, building a resilient organization means we also have to think differently about how we fund the work that we do. This is all about diversified and innovative revenue streams. And this is the latest data from Dynamic Chamber Benchmarking, hot off the presses. 62% of the average chamber's revenue is coming from non-dues sources. A decade ago, these numbers were flip-flopped, and membership was the primary driver of revenue. And I get really excited by how chambers are reimagining their revenue streams. This is from the Westchester Liberty Chamber. They conducted research to develop data around the current and future state of their economy and their workforce. They got a number of sponsors to help offset that research, and then they developed a data product that they sell at 2 different price points for members and non-members. What I love about this is they're solving a challenge. They want to make sure that organizations in their community are using data and making data-driven decisions, but also that everyone is working off the same data set. So they're making money while they're solving a local problem. In this example from the Greater Vancouver Chamber, they created a nonprofit collective. This is a hub for leadership training, capacity building. They also have a board training program where current and prospective nonprofit board members can get some good expertise. This is absolutely making their community's nonprofit sector much stronger. They're helping make their community stronger. But at the same time, they're generating revenue. This program now contributes 18% of that chamber's total revenue. So when we're thinking about resilient organizations, we're also seeing an enormous increase in mergers and creative partnerships, whether it's chamber to chamber, chamber and economic development organization, or chambers with other entities. So we've created this toolkit to help you think through that process. So whether you're just considering this or you're partway through a merger right now, this toolkit really lays out checklists, case studies, and you can learn some of the lessons that others have learned before you so you don't have to make the same mistakes. Now, how do you strategically plan for an organization when you know you're always going to have constant disruption? This is a question that the ACCE board started to consider this year. Now, because of this uncertainty that's only going to continue for us, we've decided to develop a new strategic plan. It's a framework that allows for a lot more nimbleness and agility. So an agile strategic planning framework looks like this. A significant chunk of your time and resources are dedicated to what we refer to as the core. These are the 3 or 4 things that are the greatest value drivers for your organization. You want to make sure you're delivering on those consistently and with excellence. Then there's a smaller percentage of time that's dedicated to innovation, places where you can test and scale innovations within your organization. And then an even smaller time is committed to things where you can just respond to something that crops up over the course of the year that you never could have predicted. So what this does is make sure you never lose sight of your core mission. You have baked in innovation within your own plan. You're not chasing every shiny penny that you see, and you're not going after every issue that comes up to the table. So again, this is a framework that allows for you to have both resilience and innovation within your organization. Now, I want to talk a little bit about community resilience. We want to make sure we're preparing our businesses and our communities for a stronger future. So many chambers are doing this around the idea of disaster preparedness. So for example, the Georgia Chamber puts together resources to support their local businesses before some sort of disaster gets here. This is only going to continue. We're seeing lots of floods, fires, tornadoes, even things like an energy grid going down. You want to help everyone prepare for those moments. But then we have other chambers like the Asheville Area Chamber who saw one of our country's worst floods. They're taking the lessons learned from that experience and they're training other chambers of commerce and other communities on how do you recover from these disasters as quickly as possible. Again, they're sharing the lessons that they learned with others. This example from the Michigan West Coast Chamber is a great one. They were a Chamber of the Year winner last year, based pretty heavily on this initiative. So their Community Impact Day, they pick one day where they bring people out into communities to do hands-on projects that help make their community stronger. What I love about this is it's an excellent way to engage the next generation. When you're thinking about your events, how do you get that next generation to plug in? They want experiential moments. They want to be there, be hands-on, actually doing the work. What better way to do it than through this? And it's been such a successful initiative that it's now grown past the scope of their geographic reach and is spreading across their state. Now, I love data. This is US Census Bureau data that shows over the last 10 years, we've seen a 103% increase in applications for new businesses. Now, during that same time over the last decade, the US population has only grown by 5.8%. So this entrepreneurial spirit is only increasing. And chambers of commerce are trying to find ways how they can embrace these entrepreneurs. So this is an outstanding example from Fayette County, where their chamber staff partnered with other leaders within their community to create the first ever angel investor network. This is the kind of thing that usually happens in big cities, but they're tapping into an untapped source of revenue. They're taking wealthy individuals and finding ways for them to support local entrepreneurs and the local economy. Now, one of the horizon influences that we talk about is chambers as unifiers. How can we bring people together when it feels like forces are pulling us apart? So in Georgia, the Noonan Coweta Chamber is doing just that with their One Coweta initiative. This is bringing together nonprofit leaders, business leaders, and policymakers to figure out where do they have alignment on their core issues. This is one of the best ways to build trust, is to bring your stakeholders together to say, where do we actually agree? That's exactly what they're doing through curated conversations all across their county. This is bringing those groups together, and it's helping to find better solutions. Now, I love when chambers embrace civility as a core component of their work. So this is the San Luis Obispo Chamber. They have something called their Code of Civility, where they got their stakeholders to sign on to it and say, this is the standard for civil discourse in our region. Something similar is happening at the Burlington Chamber. They support something called the Elect Respect campaign. They're saying we want to make sure that our citizens, candidates for office, and existing leaders are all being respectful and professional when they communicate with one another. I love this example from Pennsylvania. 3 chamber leaders from across the state, they penned a joint op-ed calling on their state leaders to put the gridlock aside and finally get a budget put through. This is a great way to say, we don't want you to focus on polarization. We want you to focus on the solutions that are going to drive change. And we're seeing more and more chambers become futurists for their region. This is a fantastic example from the Greater Somerville-Dorchester County Chamber. They created a vision of who they want to be in 20 years. So they have 7 pillars they're going to focus on, and how they got there was through a lot of listening. They did stakeholder surveys, citizen surveys, they brought together focus groups, but they didn't just stop at the vision. They created a scorecard that allows them to be transparent about how things are going, what's working and what's not, and it holds them accountable. Now, when we're talking about community resilience, we also want to make sure our communities are being innovative. So how do we make sure this digital transformation is coming to our backyard? So chambers like the Greater Arvada Chamber, they've created resources and tools to help their businesses embrace AI. So this is a toolkit that goes through things like great use cases, prompt best practices, AI, policy templates. This is how do we help our businesses make sure that they can leverage all of this for the good. And then the Urban Chamber, they created a Small Business Academy. This is an AI-powered adaptive learning portal that is training small businesses on some of the core areas that are most important to them. It's things like financial management, cybersecurity, how to use Canva, and the Chamber is getting revenue from this. So again, in thinking about resilience for your community, you also want them to be adapting and leveraging innovation. Now, the most important thing I can do when I stand on this stage each year is to recognize and thank the ACCE staff. This is the team that creates all of those resources I was just talking about, and they're also the team that puts together this incredible program. So thank you to the ACCE team for all that you do. Now, you heard about our Chambers Change Things campaign, and chambers do change things. We've been doing that for 258 years in this country. Now, how it looks in each chamber may be a little bit different, but our impact is the same. The impact that we have on our communities, the impact that we have on our economies, and most importantly, the impact that we have on the people in our regions. So I have a call to action for all of you. Go out there and tell your story. Tell your story of resilience, tell your story of innovation, and tell your story of the impact that you have. But most importantly, tell the story about how you're creating a better and brighter future for the people that you serve. Now, if you have not connected with me, please do so. I would love the chance to talk and share, and I'd love to hear what you're working on. So thank you so much, and keep changing things.